Hey there, this is Zola and I'm back from MotionWorks today to run you through one of the A to Z of After Effects plugins, and today we're going to have a look at Cartoon, which is not my first port of call when I enter After Effects. I'm a firm believer that I don't think you can just slap a cartoon filter on a piece of video and make it look like a cartoon. If I wanted to achieve that look, I would probably go for animating something that I'd drawn myself, or possibly using Cinema with the Sketch and Toon filter. But it has its uses, and it's quite a simple one to use, so hopefully short but sweet today. Okay, so I've got a basic. If I just hide this for a second, I'm also going to run through the Posterize filter as well, because the Posterize filter only has one parameter, and I think that it works quite well with the cartoon filter, so I'm probably going to give you 2 for 1 today. And I've got here a kind of mock slow HD slow motion piece of animation, nothing too fancy. And first thing I'm going to do before I start is show you what the Posterize does. So if we come into ramp here, we'll see that I have just a purple to blue ramp. And if I add the Posterize effect and drop this down, you'll basically see that as I drop the levels low, this is how many levels of color I'm separating into, by the way. And the more steps you give it, the greater the color information you'll have, and so less banding you'll get, basically. Normally banding would be a bad thing, especially when you're making gradients. But in the case of cartoons are drawn with very flat colors, usually midtones, highlights, and shadows, because obviously animators only have a set amount of time to animate their things unless you're working on a big motion picture. So let's turn on the filter and see what it does. So this is the default settings, and as we can see if we zoom in here, we've got a slight black edge to some parts, and it's trying to kind of imitate a cell shading kind of look, and actually gets quite ugly and messy down here at the bottom, so not that impressive in its default settings. Let's twirl it down and have a look what we have here. We have first of all the option to choose between fill, which is just the color settings basically, edges, which will give you a black and white image, and fill and edges. And you'll see here if I flick between these two, edges is what I would use first, just to make sure that I'm happy with the width and the overall look of my edges before I actually have a look at what they would look like mixed. So I'm going to start at the bottom. First thing I'll say about this plugin is that a lot of the parameters are very similar, and so sometimes it's just a case of experimenting and seeing which ones work in conjunction with which ones to produce best results. Quick side note, this plugin runs based on graphics on your graphics card, not RAM, like a lot of the plugins in After Effects. So keep OpenGL ticked. If you have a good graphics card, this will drastically speed up the time of your renders and such. So I'm going to zoom in a bit here and just empty this out a bit so we can see what's going on. And first of all, you have the color enhancement, which is basically it thins the black area, or the stroke if you will, of your footage. And this works in conjunction with the threshold, which also does roughly the same thing, and then you can basically bring the threshold down and then thin it out with the edge enhancement. Black level is, if you bring this up, you'll see the blacks will start to seep in, and this is just basically bringing this until you have a kind of fine edges effect, or you have complete, well, almost complete blackness. I wouldn't use that. By default you can actually bring this, as you can see, into the minuses, but by default I wouldn't use that, only for a thing I'll show you a bit later on. Contrast is once again basically a combination of these two things. Up here we have the width of the stroke, or the edge, I guess. So you would bring your threshold up, and then you can play with the width of your stroke in that sense. And then you have the softness, and this doesn't do a lot until you bring it right down to the bottom, to the top, sorry, at which point it tails off quite drastically, and as you can see we go from having not a lot of information to basically having your stroke back when you bring it back. Smoothing steps, kind of a bit like the posterize. As you can see, if I bring this down to 0, we've got once again like the highlighted edges look, and then if you bring the smoothness down and then start playing with this, you can see that you're kind of getting a similar effect to the posterize, and so you can use these in coordination with each other to basically highlight how many levels your midtones have and such. Then up here you have the detail radius, which just smooths out your edges, so that's quite important really. And the threshold, once again, you can control. As you can see, we're losing detail here, so this is just the overall color detail, and we would lose that by bringing that higher, which is fine if you want a really simple look and it's getting rid of all the kind of horrible grain we had down there. So yeah, those are the default options. So let's have a look at how we can actually use these to how I would use this plugin. First one is for actually a kind of off-piste way of using it, and I've used it to create a kind of sharpen high pass. So if I bring this back to normal and 100, you'll see that I basically created a grey, white and black image, in which case, but we also have the highlights highlighted, and if you use Photoshop, this would look very similar to a high pass. And basically this is great when you come to using the overlay or soft light. I'm going to use soft light because it's less harsh, and bring the opacity down, and then if we zoom in here and toggle this on or off, you'll see we've gone from having a nice image there, but this, turning it on, just picks out some of the highlights around here. If I toggle this on and off, you'll see it really helps to bring out some of the highlights and the details, so it's really useful. And the way I've done that is I've basically, if I once again bring this back to normal, I remember the black level, that's really low by default. By default it's off basically at 0 usually. If you bring this up to 10, you bring the greys in, and like I said, grey is great for when you come to use the overlay or soft light, because grey is neutral and grey does not show up when you change the blending mode to overlay or soft light. So there you go, so quite useful for using it as a sharpen filter. And last but not least, I've gone for kind of a watercolor painty effect, which is, I guess, traditionally what you'd expect from the cartoon plugin. So as we can see here, it's quite nice. I've got kind of scribble effect going to give it a kind of painted cartoony look. I've dropped the threshold, as you can see, quite low for the posterize, so we've got very few levels of color, but they're making a nice kind of blobby effect. And as you can see here, the things in the foreground, the stumps and the wickets in the stumps, are not being affected by the scribble. So let's just break down how I've done this. First of all, it's the same footage that I've used in the other one. I've added a posterize just to, as you can see, just add an extra level of detail there, and I've got this at 17 steps. I've got once again the black level up to 10, although as you can see in this case it doesn't really change anything because we're not using edges. Although I have it on fill and edges, you'll see the threshold down here, and my opacity is down to 6. If I bring this up, and that would bring that back, but I actually didn't want any edges because watercolor style traditionally doesn't have any. So I've got my steps at 30 here. You can bring these down and you can see the kind of levels being added, and so I kept that 30. Smoothness down to 0. You could get some interesting results by combining those two, but I'm going to leave that as is. And once again here we have the detail. We could bring it even lower. As you can see, we're losing some of the information there. So it depends how photoreal, invert commas, or how cartoony you want it to look. I kind of like this, and just show you real quick how I got this scribble to only affect the background and the ball, and as you can see it doesn't actually affect the stumps here. And the way I've done that is, if we come into our pre-comp here, I've basically duplicated the footage with the two. So this is the footage that's in the other composition. I've added the black and white, and this is a great filter for basically mapping certain color hues like green or blue to various shades of black or white. And then I've inverted it so that basically the stumps go black, which means that there will be no scribble on here due to the luma matte which is in effect here. And So yeah, that's how I got the scribble effect. And the scribble effect, you can just search in your effects browser. It's just a scribble effect, and you can search that and just bring that up quite easily. And I've gone for basic settings, just done a mask all the way around so that the scribble affects the whole layer. This is just a black solid, as you can see here. And just choose all masks, because by default you have single mask and nothing will show up. But I'll leave that for someone else to explain at some point. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. You know where to find me if you want to see any more of my tutorials. I've got quite a few on there now. MoGraph, Cinema 4D, my old card wipes one, and if you want to add me on Twitter, etc., go to contact, add me, and you can find all my details on this page: Twitter, Vimeo, DeviantArt, etc.